Welcome to Winchester School Committee's regular meeting of January 22nd, 2026. I will call this to order at 6:33 p.m. and we'll begin with our agenda, which is we'll start with public comment. Then we'll have remarks from the superintendent, chair, and student representatives. Distribution of the SEAM collaborative report. We'll have a consent agenda consisting of consideration of reallocation of $31,000 to Energy Management Committee for McCall Lighting, consideration of minutes from January 14th, 2026 and June 12th, 2025, reports and action items, including the FY27 budget and state of the town update, update on school calendars for 25-26 and 2026-2027, the Morocco MSBA project update, consideration of policies. And I'll just read this off. We have section B updates for BBBE, school committee vacancies, BDEE, curriculum subcommittee, BDFA, school councils, BDFAE, should be E, school improvement plan, BEDB, agenda format, BEDF, voting method, BEDG, minutes, BGD, school committee review of procedures, BHE, use of electronic messaging by school committee members. We also have section E updates, including EBC, emergency plans, EEAA, student transportation, EEAEA, bus driver examination and training, EEAEB, drug and alcohol testing for school bus and commercial vehicle drivers, EEAECR, which is also known as JICCR, student conduct on school buses, EEAG, student transportation and private vehicles. We have some additions, including ECAB, access to buildings and grounds, EFBA, school food and nutrition, meal modifications, EHAA, district security relating to technology, and this next one is also mislabeled. It should be EHB, as in boy, data and records retention. Then we have policies for deletion, which include BDFA E2 and E3, which are submission and approval of the school improvement plan and conduct of school council business, and EEAFA, bus user fees. Phew. We have next meetings. An executive session is going to be tabled this evening, and then we have adjournment. So with that, without further ado, we will return to public comment. And let's see. Do we have anybody here for public comment? If so, please raise your digital hand.
And Madam Chair,
Thank you.
I'm happy to be the timekeeper, as I'm seeing that we have some folks that
have three hands. Yes.
I think that we can. I know that you did not read the slide.
I was about to read it, so I was just taking a look for our attendees first. So here's our preamble on public comment, which shall be for a period of 20 minutes, and any citizen wishing to speak before the committee shall identify themselves by name and address and shall speak for no longer than 3 minutes. We also ask that you turn on your camera for this. All remarks will be addressed through the chair of the meeting, and public comment is not a discussion, a debate, or a dialogue between citizens and the committee. It's a citizen's opportunity to express their opinion on issues of school committee business. If you have written comments that are longer than 3 minutes, you can present these to the committee before or after the meeting. They can be sent to schoolcommittee@winchesterps.org at the bottom of our screen. So with that, we will begin with Katie. Dr. Hacker or Mr. Marin, could you please elevate?
Yes,
Katie,
I just
please.
promoted
Thank
Katie.
you.
Hi, thank you.
I'm
Hi.
Katie O'Connor. I reside at 72 Wedgmere Ave. I just wanted to join today for a quick comment. I recently read this book, which is called The Digital Delusion. I found it very compelling. The idea is that schools, once alive with deep learning born of human connection, are now dominated by screens. The result is unmistakable: falling performance, fractured attention, and the slow erosion of academic rigor. I was compelled to join tonight's meeting after listening to the United States Senate hearing last Thursday. The hearing is entitled Plugged Out: Examining the Impact of Technology on America's Youth. And I'll read from Chairman Cruz's press release. This hearing will examine how early excessive use of smartphones, tablets, and laptops can harm development and mental well-being. The hearing will also explore how to empower parents who often struggle to monitor and limit screen time at a time when the U.S. education system, fueled by federal subsidies and incentives, is providing or requiring parents to purchase personal devices for their children at school. I implore the school committee members, as elected officials who represent the interests of families in Winchester, to educate yourselves on this urgent issue. I'll email a link to the school committee email address to this hearing, and I would ask that you please watch the hearing and listen to what the panel of experts had to say to the senators on this topic. You, as school committee members, are in a position to effect positive change for all children in Winchester. Humans need friction, especially children. Focused attention is the gateway to deep learning. As Emily Churkin, one of the experts on the panel, stated in the hearing last week, a childhood filled with analog skills is one that will set kids up for success. Thank you so much for your attention to this matter.
Thank you so much. All righty, next up we have Sarah Yablon-Smith. Excuse me if I mispronounced that.
Good evening, school committee members. My name is Sarah Yablon-Smith, and I live at 45 Lincoln Street. I am both a child development professional with over 15 years of experience and a parent to my 15, 12, and 9-year-old children who all attend Winchester Public Schools, and I am deeply concerned. Last week, the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee held a hearing entitled Plugged Out: Examining the Impact of Technology on America's Youth. Committee Chair Senator Cruz started by saying, "It's incredibly hard to be a kid right now. All the parents I know, myself included, are concerned about the time their kids spend glued to screens, watching and reading insidious content that puts their minds and bodies at risk." This is what childhood looks like today. 40% of 2-year-olds have a personal tablet. Children 8 to 18 years old average 7.5 hours a day on screens, and that's outside of school hours. The detrimental effects of personal devices on our children are clear, but sadly, even those parents who strive to minimize the amount of time our children are spending in front of screens are encountering another set of challenges inside our schools. Nearly 90% of American public schools provide children with internet-connected devices for learning, and here in Winchester, that begins in 5th grade with our one-to-one device requirement. As Senator Cruz said at the Senate hearing, sadly, parents face further challenges in monitoring and limiting their children's screen time, in part because our education system, fueled by federal subsidies and incentives, has increasingly required the use of internet-connected devices in schools. Most students are now assigned laptops or tablets, often without guardrails or parental controls, in order to complete their schoolwork. There aren't many parents who think it has become easier to help with schoolwork or cut down on screen time when schools send their kids home with a personal tablet. This is what I hear from my own children. My high schooler sees kids watching Netflix on their laptops during study hall. My 6th grader tells me about the kid in his English class who endlessly scrolls YouTube. And my 4th grader talks about his classmate who uses his school-issued device to play online games instead of doing assignments. We were told that educational technology, EdTech, would give our children the ability to succeed in a rapidly changing world. But since the early 2010s, global test scores in math, science, and reading have all plummeted. As Dr. Jared Cooney-Horvath shared in his testimony, quote, over half of our children now use a computer at school for 1 to 4 hours each day, and a full quarter spend more than 4 hours on screens during a typical 7-hour school day. Unfortunately, studies suggest that less than half of this time is spent actually learning, with students off task for up to 38 minutes of every hour when on classroom devices, end quote. At my middle schoolers' parent-teacher conferences this week, I heard teachers lament how students today do not have the ability to pay attention in class, read fluently, and synthesize the content. There is a place for technology in education, such as when students are learning things like coding, animation, or robotics. But it is not when my third grader spends an hour making the title zoom in on his Google slide presentation. If we want to raise a next generation that is capable of independent thought, novel idea creation.
That is unfortunately time. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Alexis Darcy. And thank you to Ms. Smith. If you want to send in your comments, then please feel free to send that to us at schoolcommittee@winchesterps.org.
Thank you so much. Mr. Matthews, if you could let me know when it starts because I'm going to just talk real fast because I have a lot to say. So,
all right, I've already started it, so go ahead.
Good
Ms.
evening.
Darcy.
My name is Alexis Darcy. I'm an attorney and parent of 2 children in the Winchester Public Schools. I recently founded an initiative called the Winchester Center for Good Governance. Tonight, I wish to address the committee on the interrelated topics of school governance, accountability, and parent engagement. Although the United States is one of a few countries that generally reserves control of education to local cities and towns, the Commonwealth and the federal government provide significant funding to our district. That funding comes in exchange for legal obligations of accountability, strategic planning, oversight, parent engagement, and even how we govern ourselves. While I'm speaking tonight in support of our school councils, we must view these democratic entities within the broader legal context, which protects our rights to engage with one another, teachers, principals, and with you. In my short time allotted here, I will touch on several laws which promote accountability by protecting parents' rights to engage in strategic planning. In 1993, Massachusetts committed $1.3 billion towards education reform, enacting an exchange Chapter 71, Section 59C, which provides for the creation of school councils. Democratic governance bodies comprised of principals, teachers, parents, and community groups. School councils are required to meet regularly, assist in the identification of educational needs of the students, and to work with the principal to formulate a school improvement plan on an annual basis. Councils are systematic accountability structures designed to engage parents and teachers with the strategic planning process. Subjecting them to open meeting law, the legislature ensured that school councils will operate publicly and in perpetuity. In 2019, the Commonwealth passed the Student Opportunity Act, which committed $1.5 billion of state aid to support low-income students, English learners, and students with special needs, whose rates of academic achievement have lagged. This was the largest influx of state funding in several decades. Again, this funding came with the requirement that districts significantly increase parent participation and engagement. Since 2020, therefore, Winchester has been required to report to DESE on its efforts to increase parent engagement. From 2021 to 2023, Winchester reported to DESE that PISC is the first method of parent engagement. PISC, however, is not accessible to all parents.
Recording in progress.
Rather, it is an invitation-only council comprised of community groups and a handful of parents who are qualified by virtue of presidency or past presidency of a parent organization such as VOPA. Winchester further reported to DESE in 2023 that it had created a family and community engagement committee. Until I read the SOIA report, I had never heard of the Parent Engagement Committee. I'd like to reach out to the folks on that committee and speak to them about our school councils and the training we need. The biggest mystery of all is why the Winchester SOIA report to DESE fails to make any mention of our legally required school councils. At the federal level, the Every Student Succeeds Act provides us funding in exchange for deep parent engagement. The statute distinguishes from low levels of involvement and requires parents to participate in strategic planning. I have attended school council meetings at VO, McCall, and the high school. I have found them to be informative and helpful. All 3 of those principles are great. I hope that our district will support our principals by helping them to nurture our school councils and fulfill the district's legal responsibilities. In 2019, Mass Inc. conducted research on local accountability in education, conducting a statewide survey on school councils. Mass Inc. found that 70% of school councils were meeting just once per month. School council members reported that they did not receive adequate training in valuable skill areas such as budgeting, parent engagement, strategic planning, and goal setting. Other survey respondents explained that districts may fail to—
I'm afraid that's time, Ms. Darcy.
Okay, that's all I was going to say. consider this when you consider the policy. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. I think we had, okay, yes, we have another hand, Mr. Seamus Brady. And, okay. And Mr. Mayor, we also have
I got her.
Ms. Bergstrom. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Seamus Brady, Precinct 1. Thank you so much. I just wanted to take a few moments. I was at a DESE conference yesterday, and it just got me thinking. It's a challenging time of year, challenging time in our country. And I just wanted to appreciate the work that all you do as a school committee. I had the privilege of serving with many of you. Tim and Stephanie, sorry I didn't get that privilege, but I just wanted to thank Michelle for the way she has always stood up for what she believed in, especially when she advocated for the accessibility of our playground at Lynch. I want to thank Karen for always being so thoughtful in the way that she considered different perspectives. I want to thank Tom for always being so innovative in his thoughts and getting us to think about things differently. I want to thank Tim for the way that he has brought really an academic data lens to this committee. And I just want to thank Stephanie for the passion that she has brought and the advocacy for students. So again, I've sat where you sat, not as long as many of you, but I just really want to appreciate what you do, especially in this hard time. There was a nice quote yesterday from one of the associate commissioners, James Baldwin, and what he said is, it was an address he made to teachers. You all can look it up. Some of you probably read it. And he just said, if you're working with young people in these days, now's the time to go for broke. So I know you are the type of people who will go for broke. And I thank you all for that. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we've appreciated your time on the committee as well. All righty. Let me see.
I don't see
that we have
anyone
no
else.
further hands raised. I'm going to say that public comment is closed. Thank you, Dr. Matthews. And we will move on to remarks from the superintendent. Start with you.
So good evening, everybody. And we are closing in on the end of January, incredibly. As you know, we've been working hard on the budget. We're going to get a budget update tonight, but we received some news yesterday that we actually got an email about it after the agenda had been posted. So this is an item that could not have been reasonably anticipated, and not looking for any kind of full discussion on this evening, but we were notified by the Department of Elementary Education that we've been awarded a high dosage early literacy tutoring grant. So what I would like to do is turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Kirby, and she could kind of give a high-level overview. There's a lot of information we still don't know. We don't have all the details on it, but we're excited that we were able to finally get a little bit of state money. We've been trying for a few years now, and I'm not even clear exactly what it is, but I'm just excited that we were able to get recognized and have a chance to get some additional resources. So, Ms. Kirby?
Right. So what this allows us to do is to really focus on the early literacy, and specifically those students who, and they're looking specifically at DIBELS data, who scored well below and below the benchmark. And when we look at our data, we think the best place to put our energy is in the first grade. So as Frank said, this is really hot off the presses. We have more questions than we do answers. And once we accept this grant, then we'll start to understand better what the parameters are. But what we can tell you is that these will be one-to-one sessions or a very small group. They'll meet multiple times a week for 15 minutes each session, and it could be up to 10 weeks. And again, the focus is on the foundational skills, phonological awareness, phonics, and decoding. And this is a program that certainly, once we do understand better the parameters, We'll be working with the teachers, collaborating to determine which students would best benefit from this type of intensive tutoring. And certainly we'll be working with families and caregivers to make sure they understand what this program allows, what it will do for their students, and always have the opportunity to opt out of this. It's not mandatory in any way. So we want to make that clear as we go through the process. I think I hit on all the highlights. I will say that there were, we were allotted the 15 minutes up to 10 weeks, and it will be 15 minutes of virtual sessions. So it's, our hope is we're not going to be supplanting, we're going to be supplementing. So we are going to make sure as we think about our schedule that we still protect that core time where we know all students need to be part of. And then we have that second hour, which is for this type of intervention. It's that period for differentiation. So again, you know, once we know more, then we'll be able to, you know, follow up, give you a better update. And in the meantime, we'll keep all of the educators and families who are impacted involved.
When does that start?
That's a great question. So on tomorrow, we have to give our final approval, and then from there, we'll start getting more communication. So I don't really have a definitive answer yet.
Okay. And then I'll save this for the end. Ms. Minyarji?
Thank you, Ms. Kirby. It's great that we're getting state support with early literacy intervention. This is phenomenal. Is this a dollar figure? Is this a grant that we're getting from the state? And we're going to use that towards FTEs to expand interventions in our classroom?
That is a great question. I should have led with that. So the state has different vendors that they work with, and they're vetted. So it will be an outside group that comes in and works with our students. And this is a grant, so we are not responsible for any kind of funding. This is as a result of the initiative that the Keeley administration is putting forth.
So great. So they're going to provide the resources directly by contracting it out to a professional.
An outside vendor.
Excellent, excellent. And what are the intervention methods that they're going to be using? Do you know?
So that I can't answer with confidence yet, because we haven't had the ability to sit and ask those kinds of questions.
Okay, great.
All
great.
good
I know
we
this is
will
all hot
follow
off
up.
the press, so I appreciate
Correct.
it. No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So Stephanie, if it helps, what I've heard through my own channels is that it's a certain number of seats essentially in a certain number of hours of tutoring, and that it will be sort of provided in that way. So we sort of got allocated like a certain number of seats per school. And then there's an amount of hours for each of those seats. So it's sort of, I know that's not exactly what, I think that was what your question was, that we didn't exactly say, but there's sort of like number of seats and then number of hours for each of those seats that are allocated. And then we were given a single vendor by the state, which I believe was the case for other districts as well.
No, that's great. That's good information to have, Tim.
It reminds me a little bit.
I think it was, I was just curious if they're going to be using like Orton Gillingham or Wilson's or what, but I know there's more to come. So I'm gonna stay put. Thank you so much, Ms. Kirby.
Ms. Bergstrom?
Thank you to those in the central office who took the time to seek this grant out. I know high-dose tutoring has been something that's been on our wish list for quite some time to be able to fund. So it's nice to see the state stepping up to be able to help us with some of that funding and get those services to the kids who really need it. So I just wanted to appreciate whoever in central office helped to get that data together and apply for that grant, first of all. Ms. Kirby, I had some questions that you may not have the answer to, so I'm just going to throw them out there. And if you can't answer them, certainly I'm sure they will come back to us. I was curious what kind of what kind of curriculum they will be using with the kids and if it will be complementary to what the kids are currently receiving in school. I'm presuming this is tier 2 intervention that kids are identified, it'd be kids who are already identified as tier 2 intervention, potentially for us. So is this in addition to the tier 2 that we are already providing them, so they'll get our tier 2 plus whatever the state vendor is providing?
Yeah, it very well could be, or it could be special students who have IEPs. Again, we just want to look individually, have that opportunity to do that, to see what makes sense, because we have to look at these complex learners that we work with each and every day. And does it make sense to add another provider, or is that only going to confuse? And your questions, Stephanie and Michelle, around the methodology that they're going to use is going to be a key factor in us making that decision about what makes best sense for each of our students.
So students aren't disqualified from these services if they have an IEP?
No, is if they are in the red or the yellow, they very much couldn't be part of.
Okay. And my other question is, it sounds like you sort of answered, this is during the school day, so this is not a before or after school program.
Well, that's what we're hoping that we can extend, because again, we're saying that we're not taking the place of, but like I said, we are going to protect that core block, that differentiation block. I mean, that is where reading the way that they have given us our first, that at first glance, it looks like it has to be during the school day, but that is our question. Could we start like 15 minutes earlier, 15 minutes later, so that it truly is not supplanting, it is a supplemental to what they're already getting during the 6 hours that they have. So we're going to see if we can stretch it, because that may work better for our students and some of the families and caregivers that we'll be reaching out to be part of the program.
Right, absolutely. And then my last question is, you talked about first graders and that this being a virtual delivery curriculum method. Will that require, or are they supporting staff to be able to sit with that student to make sure that they're attending to the lessons that they're receiving? And is that a consideration as well?
Yes, so that is another great question, and that's certainly on our minds, because we don't want this to happen in isolation and not to be able to generalize it into their, their daily practice. So that is another consideration that we'll, be thinking about as we go forward.
And I lied, my last one's 2-part.
All right, that's fine. These are all good. We'll get
If
back
it's
to what we know.
if it's virtual, will it be only Winchester students as part of the virtual lessons, or could there potentially, you said one-on-one or a small group, so could there be students that are from the same vendor from other districts, or will they be delivering services to our students so it matches our program exclusively during that time?
Right. So again, just another question that we're going to be putting out there. It is our understanding at first read, though, that it will be our students only.
That was mine as well, Ms. Kirby, but I just wanted to clarify.
No, and these are great questions. And again, we'll confirm all of that and report back to you. And this is just good as we're going out and communicating with the educators as well. So that it's very helpful.
Thank you so much.
I knew we were running a risk by bringing this up and talking about it tonight. So, and it reminds me a lot of if you've gone on to rent a car on Priceline and you get the mystery vehicle. So it's kind of what it feels like. We got the mystery vehicle. We really don't know what it is yet. It could be a stick shift. We have no idea. But we do know it's a good program. We've seen some good research around it. And to everyone else's point, I would like to thank Ms. Kirby and literacy coordinator Melissa Newell. We have applied for a lot of grant money over the last several years, and I know before that time we have applied, and we just have never been able to get over the hump. And I do think one of the factors for us in this was the fact that we are implementing or getting ready to implement an evidence-based literacy program. that was part of the requirements. So that we're just pleased to be, we're just glad to be invited, and we'll see what it looks like. So thank you to everybody. And that is it for me, Madam Chair.
At some point, is there an action that you're looking for?
There is
from
no
us?
action because we're not
Okay.
receiving funds. So
All
this
right.
is a resource being provided by the department. And they are the ones who are contracting with the vendor. So we are simply recipients of the service.
Great.
I do
Thank
wish
you.
the turnaround time on us letting them know had been a little longer than a day and a half.
That's
but
right.
you know, it's all right.
We can
It's
have
all
it.
right. It's all
Yeah.
right. No, I'm
So
not going
it's
to be
good
critical
news.
of that. Yep.
So, okay. Just a few items, few important dates. So we have the preschool lottery going on right now. And that is closing. There are tours. The lottery itself is going, or the lottery application period is on right now. And there are tours that are also happening. And this closes, the lottery application closes on January 30th. So if you could just check the WPS website and search for preschool lottery, you can find some information if you are interested in registering for that lottery. There is also kindergarten registration coming up. That opens on February 9th, so be on the lookout for information on that. And that can also be found on the Winchester, the WPS website. And then finally, the Northeast Metro Vocational School is offering a 12-week program through April, from now until April, on exploring career and technical career pathways. You can learn, students from the 9th to 12th grade can choose to learn a trade at an exploratory level. And over the course of the 12 weeks, they can try out like 3 different trades if they are interested. So that's what I have. And then I see that we also have our student representative here, one of them, Ingo Lee. So I'll turn it over to him. Welcome.
Hi. I just wanted to share a few quick updates from the student body. First, a lot of students have been really happy with the new gym. People especially like the movable bleachers and how they can be like pulled out of the wall and then moved to wherever they're needed. They worked really well during the pep rally, and overall the look is much more modern and better than before. For sports, the boys varsity hockey team won last night in a close game against Watertown, which was exciting to see with a score of 3-2. In terms of academics, the second quarter ends on January 30th, so a lot of students are going to be very busy next week with midterms. And then a few important upcoming dates and events on top of what was said earlier. Tomorrow there's a blood drive sponsored by the Winchester Red Cross Club, and it will be held in the high school gym from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Also, Student Council will be hosting Multicultural Night on February 12th in the high school cafeteria from 6 to 8 p.m. It's an event where many students are looking forward to, and it is a great way to celebrate different cultures in our school's community. That's all for me. I'll pass it back to you.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Ingo while we have him?
I'll be going to the multicultural night. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm bringing my elementary age children, and I know a lot of younger families will be participating. So thank you again for providing this event for the entire community. It was being
There's good
promoted
food
at
at
PISC. I know. Yes, very excited.
Good food, good company.
Yes.
And Ingo, I just want to say thank you for being so organized in your updates. It's really wonderful to have such a good, succinct view into what's going on. I really greatly appreciate that. So thanks so much for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's hope we don't have a snow day to derail your end of quarter activities.
Yeah, hopefully.
Easy now.
So, that's right. All righty. Ingo, understanding that midterms are coming up next week, totally understand. Whenever you need to drop off, then just feel free. But thank you so much for participating and coming.
Okay, no problem.
So, All righty. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have the reallocation of $31,000 to the Energy Management Committee's grant application for McCall lighting.
Madam Chair, could I just,
Yes, I was going to say, I see Mr. Pruitt and then also Mr. Hopcroft might have something to say on that topic.
well, I just want, I know it's a consent agenda item, so I really just wanted to actually make a technical motion on it. But as I think the committee knows, we had a $31,000 allocation for a controls project at McCall under the Green Communities program, and this is just shifting it because we didn't get. It's a matching grant. It's actually a small amount of money we put down to get a lot more money back. And so this is just switching it to LED lighting in the same building, same program. The suggestion that I was going to ask the committee if we could make a slight motion to change here is just to add on to the end of this motion, pending approval of the award, since clearly we don't always get these awards. We think the LED lighting is probably much more likely to receive the award than the controls project, but just to preserve that ability to then shift this on to another project after that. So it would just be to add, pending approval of the award onto the end of this.
Do we have consensus on that?
Yes.
Ms. Mignardi?
Yes.
I can't see. I
Yeah.
can't see everybody.
Yes.
So I should be on my gallery view. So, okay. All righty. And then we also have consideration of minutes from January 14th and of this year and June 12th, 2025.
So I don't know, Mr. Hopcroft, if you made a motion, but if you did, I second it. If you did not, I would be happy to make a motion to accept the consent agenda with the modification proposed by Mr. Hopcroft.
And I would second it.
Thank you. All in favor? Mr. Hopcroft?
Aye.
Ms. Mignardi?
Aye.
Ms. Bergstrom?
Aye.
And Dr. Matthews?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, and the vote is unanimous on the consent agenda. So thank you so much to the Energy Management Committee for going and seeking these kinds of grants and opportunities, and then also to those who have worked on the minutes. So catching those up.
I believe that Mr. Pruitt is with us. I don't know if he's a panelist, so I don't know if he wanted to say anything at this point.
Well, it sounds like this motion has passed. First of all, good evening, Ken Pruitt, Sustainability Director. Very nice to see you all tonight. And if I'm correct in understanding that you just passed, essentially adopted by consent, the reallocation of the funding for this grant application, which we will hopefully win. Thank you very much. And if you happen to have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I don't want to hold up the rest of your agenda.
No, I think I am good, but I just wanted to make sure, since you were a panelist and you took the time to come and join us, that if you had any remarks to offer, the opportunity was open. But we really thank you for all of your continued work and advocacy on behalf of the town of Winchester, all the great work that you do, and look forward to continuing to partner with you on these initiatives.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you also, Mr. Pruitt. I know the work that you do is leveraging a lot of money into the town, putting up small amounts of money to get lots of outside, Climate Leader being the best example, $1 million over 3 years. And the majority of that ends up landing in school department buildings. So I appreciate all that, the work that you're doing to help keep us modern and frankly, invest in things that we have to pay for anyway, upgrades and HVAC and windows and things. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pruitt. Really appreciate it. All right.
Okay.
Let's see. We will move on
Madam
to
Chair,
yes.
Mr. Pruitt, I would imagine can stay for the entire meeting if you'd like to, but he could also go if he would like to do that as well. So I make sure it's not an awkward moment for Mr. Pruitt to, faded black and then disappear.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Harrigan. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Thanks so much.
You.
Good night. Thank you. Let me see. All right. Reports and action items. First item of business is the FY27 budget and state of the town update. The budget subcommittee had just had a meeting last night, so I will turn it over to that team. to give us an update.
So, Mr. Marin, you can advance. So, the agenda that we had last night was to look at our FY27 budget development process. One of the recommendations that has come out is a request to use special ed reserve funds for the FY26 budget. So that is something we definitely would like to talk with the committee about tonight. As for the FY27 budget development plan, if we could go to the next slide. So this is the revised budget development timeline that we've been using starting last year. It has again been revised again this year to reflect the state of the town committee and some decisions that need to be made around that. We will be having a budget summit on the 28th. With boards and committees, finance committee and the select board and the school committee to discuss the state of the FY27 budget and budgets moving forward towards the override. We have our public hearing then has been moved to Thursday, February 5th to reflect the discussion and things that may come out of that budget summit on the 28th. So we have actually moved our public hearing date, which is typically at the end of January, out another week because of that. And all of that is leading up to a special town meeting on February 9th, where we will talk about the override and the model that the state of the town has developed and whatever number the select board decides to bring to us at that time. If we could move on. And at this point, I'm going to turn the superintendent recommended budget over to Dr. Hackett and Mr. Marin to walk us through.
Madam Chair of the Budget Subcommittee. We did talk at the meeting about where we are. This should look pretty familiar to all of you at this point. The state of the town model, the level services model, which has us at 5% rollover growth for FY27, essentially rolling us forward. And then for the state of the town, that number, the 77,331,754, or the 9.82%, is inclusive of the 5%, but represents the priorities that we have identified for FY27. And I'm going to let Ms. Nargi and Mr. Matthews speak to that, because they truly did a ton of work and made multiple presentations on the priorities through the state of the town process, if they would like to say anything.
Yes, so the state of the town superintendent recommended budget is what we presented to the select board about 2 weeks ago, which was the 5% level services plus all of our asks under essential services. So that brings us to the $77 million, $77.331 million figure. That presentation, I felt, went well. We went over our priorities that we've been discussing for the last 8 months, years even, that the committee has been reviewing. What kind of school district do we want to be? Where do we hope to go? What are our needs and what are our challenges that we've been facing? And using this as an opportunity to using the override as an opportunity to invest in those areas. So this is a number that has been socialized for some time now. Dr. Matthews, do you have anything to add?
I was just going to say two things. One of them is the number of the things that were at part of those essential services that were requested are things that were deferred for a long time, things that were sort of known needs. But because of sort of the ways in which budgets have evolved in Winchester, they are not things that we have necessarily asked for before, or in some cases were things we'd asked for and not received. But it's not that these things were not necessarily known. They're just things that, especially with the disruption of COVID and our choice during COVID to use some of the supplemental funds, particularly the ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 funds, to sort of keep our budget more on even keel. We did not do similar things to other districts to try to address some of the post-pandemic effects. And I think we saw a slower recovery in Winchester versus some of the other towns surrounding us. The second thing I'll say is, the number that's currently on the screen, the 9.82%, is actually, it's not, it is in excess of what we have had in the past, but it is that sort of one-time truing up to the level that we believe we need to be at in order to sort of move forward in a better way for our students. And I just want to make sure to note that in many of our surrounding communities, their level services growth has been in the range of 7 to 10%. So the fact that we are not only able to do the level services, but also do the additional requests in our essential services that we developed as part of the State of the Town process, I think is a great testament to the fact that we are being fiscally responsible and have continued the tradition of strong fiscal management. So kudos to Mr. Marin and Dr. Hackett and others on the finance and operations team, as well as our budget subcommittee members for continuing us on a really good path, because that's an impressive thing to be able to do those things that we're requesting and still do it at that number.
So I'll take you through the slides quickly. If we could just move to the next one. Again, these should all look familiar to you. These are the major drivers for us. As you all know, we do have 5 collective bargaining units. We have settled with B and C. Unit A, teachers unit, is voting on the MOA agreement that we reached next week. So we'll know whether or not that is ratified by them, and then that will come back to you at your following meeting for discussion and ratification. And then we have D and E, which are the 2 smaller units. We actually have a tentative date for starting with negotiating with Unit D for Monday, February 9. So I know that I believe we'll be reaching out to those of you who are taking that on behalf of the school committee, and we'll get some planning going. And then, of course, we've made adjustments throughout the budget, including everything that we know at this point in time. We've adjusted based on special ed education out of district tuition and transportation, general education transportation. We've made adjustments to cover the ESP positions that we had to hire after this budget that we're sitting in right now was passed in the spring. So we not only are we incurring those costs that are unbudgeted in this current year, we're going to be obviously carrying them into next year as well. So we've made those adjustments. We do have, as we've talked about many times, structural deficits in the athletics program, which is the result really of us running out of reserve funds, which we had used to get through the last several years. We've made adjustment for that. Substitute costs, we've never, and not unlike many places, we've never really budgeted the substitute line at the level that we end up actually spending. So we've increased that as well. Certainly not expecting that the increase is going to cover all the full costs, but it's a much better estimate as to what we would anticipate spending. We've made adjustments for the retirements that we know, and then we are currently working on enrollment driven adjustments, which we'll talk about not tonight, but at a later date. And then we have areas to watch, which is also, as those should also look familiar to you. Go to the next slide. Thank you. And this was the presentation that both Mr. Nargi and Mr. Matthews gave to the select board, to the state of the town, and kind of the way that we've broken it out this slide. And this also should look familiar to you. We would identify, really going from left to right, that those are our top priorities for FY27, but they're not only our top priorities for FY27, they are our top priorities, period. So we are asking for those funds and prioritizing those funds. As you can see, that is primarily for tier 2 supports. It's also some additional special education support. And we also are looking to fulfill really our commitment at the high school level we year over year struggle to have enough sections of certain classes for our students to get into, and we are increasing enrollment at the high school. So we also want to make sure we're spending money at the secondary level, because we really have been talking a lot about literacy in elementary, as you all know too well. So we are also trying to address some of the issues and needs at the high school level. And then you can see the remaining for an FY total of almost 3.4 million, FY 27 total.
If I may, Dr. Hackett, so these are the essential services that we talked about in the previous slide. So it's level services plus this ask here, the 3.395 million. And these are in 3 major categories, right? Curriculum updates. This includes math and literacy. And then also tier 2, well, all tiered supports, right? And the third one is equity. We're looking at different opportunities to address some of the inequities between our 5 elementary schools. So these are the priorities that were here. But during our select board presentation, we took some time to present things that are unfunded needs as we identified them, things that we would love to add to our budget, but we understand the fiscal constraints of the town. So therefore, we've had to prioritize our items, our asks over here. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. So that really is the bulk of the meeting. We did talk a little bit about next steps for budget subcommittee. As Andrew and I have worked through the processes, we've just been trying to think about how we can best align to the state of the town process. And obviously there's the scenario where we have an override that is successful, which is what we all hope happens. And then there's the scenario potentially where the override isn't successful or doesn't make it to the ballot for whatever reason. And I think from our perspective, we feel like the best way to just start the planning process for that possibility is to develop a level funded budget, which would mean that the budget amount for next year, we would be using the same amount of funding that we currently have in the year that we're in. So unlike level services, where we're rolling forward and we're making sure that we're covering all of our obligations, this exercise, and it is an exercise, forces us to think about a scenario where we aren't able to meet level services. And the reason why we feel going to and developing a level funded budget as just a true baseline, somewhat of a thought exercise, because I just cannot imagine a world where we would be receiving level funds, but getting to that point and identifying our priorities also then allows us to build back, right? So I think it's an important step for us to do, and we've let the budget subcommittee know and letting you know that we will be working on that over the coming weeks. So with that, Andrew, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add, or that would be, I think, a pretty good summary.
No, it's a good summary. We did speak to additionally requesting the remaining funds on the sped reserve fund that's shared between the town and the schools. And so it's
Do you
sort of
want to bring up that motion? Do we want to make that motion this evening?
I don't.
I think we were planning,
it.
we were looking
Yeah.
at that for February 5th, but we can talk about the background, but we don't have it on our.
We don't have a vote noticed on the agenda.
Yeah,
Right.
I would consider,
Got it.
consider it sort of your first read on it here.
Okay.
And you recall I went through this process last
But
year.
I like your enthusiasm, Ms. Miyagi.
Yeah.
That's right.
So yeah, brought up here. And so this is really related to sort of some unanticipated, unbudgeted costs around our special education transportation around out of district, specifically over the summer, and then into the start of the year. And so we budget for a certain amount and we've exceeded that. What we have done is we've projected that increase into this 27 level services and adjusted level services budget that you have. So that's in next year's number, but what's missing is this year to cover that gap there.
Any questions about that? Or you can also ask Mr. Marin on the side over the next few weeks.
Great, thanks.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Bergstrom and Ms. Minyarji and Mr. Marin and Dr. Hackett for the update from the Budget Subcommittee and from the state of the town. Let's see. Okay, next up is an update on the school calendars for 25-26 and 26-27. I'll turn that over to Dr. Hackett.
Chair. And I'm going to ask Dr. Alan-Emma and Ms. Kirby to jump in if I screw this up, because I have somehow struggled with this messaging. I think I've got it down. What we are recommending a change to the current calendar, the 25-26 school calendar. As the calendar sits right now, we have a full teacher workshop day on March 3rd, which is no students. It's only teachers. It's one of our 184 days that we have built within our calendar. With that day in the calendar, the last student day with the one day that we had to close, the last student day currently is Wednesday, June 24th. We have for several years, the last student day is a half day for students, and it's a full day for staff. So staff, once students go home, staff then finishes out their grades, their end of the year tasks, and kind of closes out the year. That has been our practice for several years. What we're suggesting with this, or what we're proposing, and we have spent quite a bit of time with the union. We've gotten a lot of feedback, and we feel, I think there's good support. There is good support for it. Is that we move the March 3rd workshop date. So that day, March 3rd, now would be a half student day. So we would have a half day professional development and a half student day. This also lines up well with our literacy training, because we're going to be doing some additional literacy professional development at the elementary level, and then we'll be doing activities and professional development with secondary too. But we're trying to nail down, there's quite a bit, we have some hours we need to get in this year for literacy in preparation for the selection of a curriculum that we would be implementing next year. So that would be a half day. So it counts as a full student day, even though it's a half day. Then we would move the March 3rd full workshop day. That would now be, killing me, Marin. That would then, I told you I'm struggling with this, and you just took away my cue cards. The 23rd would become the last student day of the year. So effectively, we move March 3rd full workshop day to June 24th. That would be the last day for teachers. It'd be a full workshop day. The 23rd would then become the last student day, which still would be a half day, allowing teachers to close out the year. So it takes one day off the year, the end of the year for students, which I think when we start looking at where we are on the calendar, makes sense. And I don't even want to talk about Monday. And then when we also line up with what our professional development needs are, and very specifically, and I'm sorry, but it is elementary literacy driven right now, because we just have, it's going to be a huge implementation, and we are going to be dependent on outside vendors. So we really need that full day, and it really is, March 3rd would have been too soon to do it. So that's the proposal. We would love to have you take action on that this evening if you are comfortable with that. If not, if you could give us some consensus, then we could at least get it out to parents and to staff to let everybody know that this was a proposal that we're anticipating approval shortly. Jen, Dr. Alan-Emma or Ms. Kirby, did I miss or screw anything up?
I think you got it.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Pretty proud of myself.
Great. Do we have some questions?
Even without
I see
cue
Mr.
cards.
Hopcroft.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
there comes
right.
questions. Oh, no.
Dr. Hackett, these are going to be really tough. So first, I'll start by saying I'm generally supportive of making these minor changes in order to better accommodate professional development. I just wanted to make sure I followed all of this. So March 3rd currently is a day that students don't have school, and so they would we would add a half day on March 3rd. On the 24th, they currently have a half day, so we would subtract a half day from the students then, right?
No. So currently the last day of school for students, so we have 180 student days, as you know, right, that we have to get
Yep.
in this calendar. 180, the 180th day is June 24. And maybe
Right.
yes to your question, and maybe I'm just misunderstanding. We're just
So-
moving that back to the 23rd because we're making the third a student day.
Right. So I guess the thing I'm trying to just clear up in my head is, it seems like we're taking off an early release day on the 24th and adding one on the 3rd. So those two net out to 0. And so the question would be on the 23rd, can we still do a half day then? Or would the 23rd have to be a full day?
No, it's a half. It would be a half day.
It's a half
It would
day.
be a half day.
Okay, so the net is going to be a half day less than they currently have now.
Then
Correct? 'Cause we're taking-
not by state standards, because half days count as full days.
Oh, okay. So
So
this
we
is
meet the
messy now.
180-day requirement with
Okay.
this recommendation.
Okay, so you're basically just swapping the 24th for the 3rd, then it doesn't matter how long they're there.
Yeah, sure. Just show off
Yeah.
with that kind of summary. Yeah.
Got it. No, well, I was like the and takes weren't matching, and I was just like, I just want to make sure we were covering our obligations. But I'm in support of this.
I
Thank you.
appreciate all the support I can get.
Ms. Minyarji?
Just two things really quickly. I love it. I love this idea. Can we do this every time we have a full professional day? We'll do a few more half days, so that way we can save on the summer side. But wait, that's not my question. That
Okay.
was just a
That didn't
comment.
sound like a question, really.
No,
That
it
was the
didn't. Just a comment.
editorial.
Is there a way that we can move that March 3rd date to March 6th? So that way all of our half days are consistently on a Friday?
It will depend on the vendor schedule.
Okay.
For
Okay.
literacy, because we are bringing somebody in, so we can take a look at that. But I think at this
Because
point,
it's been so beautiful how all of our half days have been on Fridays, and it's very predictable and it's easy for parents to plan and build their work schedules around that. So just for consistency's sake, either way, I'm supportive.
thank you.
Ms. Bergstrom? Oh,
I'm all set.
maybe her hand. Oh, okay. All right. Dr. Hackett, are you looking for a motion from us to make the change?
I would,
Or
I
if
would
you just
appreciate
need
it if you're
okay.
comfortable with that, understanding that at this point in time, I mean, and I appreciate Ms. Bernardi's question. As it stands right now, parents are planning or should be planning on a full day, and I know a half day is going to be harder to plan for than a full day of off. So, but I think we would recommend as presented at this point.
Dr. Hackett, I was just going to suggest that if we haven't done it, that we reach out to Kidsborough and see if they're able to cover that half day as well as the full
that is-
day that
Yes.
at the end of the year, in case parents need support on either end.
We will absolutely do that. We've done that in the past, and they've been able to accommodate.
In that case, I'm happy to make a motion to accept the calendar as presented.
Second.
Thank you very much. And all in favor, Ms. Minyarji,
Aye.
Ms. Bergstrom,
Aye.
Mr. Hopcroft,
Aye.
and Dr. Matthews.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, and the vote is unanimous for the change to our calendar. And that information will go out.
We'll get that information out
Soon.
tomorrow.
So if
Okay.
they
Yep.
can move it to the 6th, do we need to vote on it again?
You would have to vote on it again. I'm quite certain that we've been planning on the 3rd with the vendors. So we've
Okay.
been actually, this conversation has been happening internally for quite some time. We had quite a bit of, we spent quite a bit of time with the union because we want to make sure that we get their input. But we would have liked to have brought this to you about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So.
All right, thank you very much. And we'll move on to the Morocco MSBA project update.
If I could, Madam Chair, just a quick comment on the 26-27 calendar, because I know.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
And this is really kind of a repeat of information that that we have verbally provided last time. Just we will be bringing a 26-27 draft calendar to you, likely at your next meeting. There's contract language in the Unit A teachers agreement. And I'm just going to read it because we are bound to this every single year. And this, in some way, I find it can be restrictive, but in many ways, it also makes it easier because there's not really much thought that has to go into the start date. And the language has to do with the first day of school. And it says the school year shall begin not earlier than the first Tuesday after Labor Day, except when Labor Day falls on September 5 through September 7, when school then can begin on the last Monday in August. Now, I have read that 103 times since I've been here, but it is simple when I just kind of forget exactly what it says. But so that would effectively mean that for the 26-27 school year, because Labor Day falls on the 7th, that we would begin with teachers on Monday, August 31st. We would have an additional day with teachers on Tuesday, September 1st. We would have the first day of students would be Wednesday, September 2nd. Another day, a student day on Thursday, September 3rd. And we have historically, and we would likely be recommending for Friday, September 4th to be a non-school day, no students, no staff. And that would then fall into the Labor Day weekend. So that's where we are right now. We have to get 180 student days in every single year. There are 4 workshop days that we get in every single year. In looking at the holidays, I think there could be a couple of options, but that would really, I think, just, we know that February and April vacations always fall at the same time. We know what the November break looks like with Thanksgiving. And we do that every single year, half day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off. And the only real variable that we generally have has to do with where we put the additional 2 workshop days, and although not much of a variable, and also the December break. And this year, as you know, we had a 2-week break. I just as early as today had a parent say that they were super pleased with it. They loved it, and they can't wait for it to happen again next year. And I had to say, I'm not sure it will happen again next year, but I don't think that's going to deter that parent from their December break plans. So, but it is a little bit of a different, the calendar looks different in December during that time. So I'm not sure that we would be recommending a 2-week break. So with that said, we'll be bringing back a draft to you for the 26-27 calendar. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any, but we, again, want to get those dates out.
I feel as if that 2-week break only happens every 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
It was nice every 7 years.
It was nice.
Yeah,
Every 7 years, though.
That's right. Every 7 years.
I'd just be happy if we could put out 2 years worth of calendars at one time.
I know.
Yeah.
This is, yeah.
That's a really good idea, Michelle.
Oh, come on. Can we not do this right now, please?
But the good news is that for those that are at least planning the end of summer, because of that contract language, we do know when the following year's first school day will be.
Always.
Yeah.
So I think
Always
that
and forever.
what I have said to Dr. Hackett, one-on-one, is I would love for us to be able to more widely and frequently publicize the contract language, because it allows families to have the predictability, because we already know it will either start on the Wednesday before Labor Day, or it will start on the Thursday after Labor Day, depending on when Labor Day falls. So,
And Dr. Matthews,
Or maybe
I
it's-
feel like it's Groundhog Day, and we have this conversation every year, and
So true.
it's just one of those things that we have to re-educate parents and
Can we put it
families
on the
every
website?
year.
Yeah,
I was
so-
going
on
to
the
say
website?
maybe it
Yeah.
We
belongs
can
instead
absolutely
of
put
under
it on the
contract
website.
language. Yeah.
Absolutely.
On the
Maybe
bottom of
somewhere on
the
the calendar.
Make a
I'm thinking-
billboard
the
for
bottom
the
of the
center
calendar.
of town.
I'm
I mean,
thinking a lot
calculate.
about those pages.
I'm not
on
exaggerating when I
conference
say
websites. I was just saying, I'm thinking a lot about those pages on conference websites where they tend to say what the upcoming dates are and where it's going to be located. If you've ever been to a professional conference that's like that, it sort of feels like we could have that kind of page. It's like beginning of school dates for the next 3 years based on the calendar. We know it'll be in this range.
I was going to
Yeah.
say, Dr. Hackett, you should just put it on the bottom of the school calendar.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
You know what? I can't
when
even
we were
tell you how
all
much
talking.
I can't even tell you how much I appreciate all these suggestions, and I will take them all under advisement. And I'll be bringing a draft calendar to
All
you.
our
at your next meeting.
micromanagement.
Okay. All right. Thank
That's
you.
right. Truly. All right. Anything else on that? Or then I'll move us on to Morocco MSBA project update. So thank you. And I'm giving it right back to you, Dr. Hyde.
Thank you very much. And I'll just roll right through. So this is just a verbal update. And I know that Mr. Nixon, who is our representative to the FBBC, which I also sit on, which also Mr. Marin attends religiously. It's been a little harder for me to attend because the meetings have been on Monday nights, and as you know, we've been doing a lot of negotiating on Monday nights. But having said all that, Mr. Nixon did put out a project schedule that is a draft schedule. It's consistent with what has been put out with previous projects. And it is also consistent. I mean, there are really some very set deliverable dates from the MSBA as to when certain things have to be delivered. So, I talked to Mr. Nixon earlier this evening. Always appreciate him doing that and appreciate the hard work that he puts into this to the EFPBC. It would be difficult to not have him there for a variety of reasons. I did not have a chance to fully see the dates before they went out, which is not a big deal. But one of the things I did talk to him about today is that, and I think this has to be a conversation with you at an upcoming meeting. We also will need to reach out to the FPBC for the same conversation. But one of the critical points to start the whole process is the actual funding the feasibility study. So we have a 270-day eligibility window. We're in eligibility now. The window begins in March, early March. Once that window begins, we have 270 days to fund the feasibility study. So there are really only two logical times that, as you know, that we could do that. One is at Springtown meeting, and one is at Fall Town meeting. I can make a case for either one. However, as you might imagine, if it were to happen in the Springtown meeting, and I can think of 103 reasons why that may not be a good idea given where we are with the budget and the override. However, what that would allow us to then do is we would be almost 6 months ahead in the timeline than we would be if we took that vote and asked for those feasibility funds, assuming they're approved by the town, if we do that at Fall Town meeting. It also gives us the entire summer, which for our internal staff, mainly Andrew and myself, when it comes down to this stuff, although the education plan, those kinds of things will be handed off to Dr. Alanema and Ms. Kirby and Ms. West. But just hitting these other deadlines, enrollment projections, profile questioning, all those deadlines, we can start to move forward in the summer, which is a better time for us because there are no students and kids here, and we have time to do it. What gets tough is when we start getting into the closing of the school year, opening of the school year. It just gets more difficult to find the time. But more importantly, it does buy us several months. Now, we could do all that by several months, and we are still looking at a 2031 opening potential. This project is not Lynch. I think there's some strong indications in conversations that I've had with several people, including the MSBA. I think there's interest and some level of expectation that we would look very hard at a renovation addition project. And to right size that building based on enrollment projections. So when I say addition, that also means things like to build a cafeteria that's an actually purposed built cafeteria that gets it out of where it is now, which is a much better location, and I think it's working well, but it would be a purpose-built cafeteria. So, and there may be classrooms that all the classrooms we refurbish. There may be some other things that might be part of an addition, because in terms of meeting the educational specifications from the MSBA, we have a lot of spaces that are really not designed for what they're being used for right now. So I'm putting that out there to you to get you thinking about that question. I'm happy to try to answer any questions tonight, but I think it's important for you to start thinking about this. And I think we should probably discuss it at a next meeting and maybe have some conversation offline with Mr. Nixon, Mr. Nardone at EFPBC to signal that we are going to open this conversation. I don't know what the right thing to do is because of everything else that is going on and the votes that we're asking for with the override itself, and what the town meeting will be in the spring if we're successful, if we're not successful. So I'm not making a recommendation. I just think it's important because with the timeline that came out, I think it's important for us to just consider that is possibly an option that you might want to consider.
Just a quick clarifying question. So even if we were to seek to have a vote at spring town meeting, and then you could proceed with some of the work over the summer, you still have to stick with the timeline of the MSBA. So it's not like you could pull things up and pull ahead.
No,
everything.
well, it is very much that we can pull things up and pull ahead, because what happens is that the MSBA doesn't meet. I mean, they meet several times in the year, but they don't meet every month, right? So when you, in fact, and this happened to us with Lynch, and just a reminder to you, and I came on when this was happening, or the tail end of when this is happening before I got here. The FPBC rightfully challenged the MSBA, or had a conversation with the MSBA about the build enrollment. The MSBA had improved. That resulted in more students being added to that enrollment projection, so that it changed the scope of the building. That set that building, along with COVID, it cost that building several months of time in terms of working towards completion. Those things can happen. It could happen, something like that could happen on Morocco. But what's hard is that you still have to meet those MSBA meeting dates, and and the deliverables for those meetings that they are going to hold have to happen. They get their stuff anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks ahead of time. So it's not like we can come in, their meeting, we walk in the next day, which I know you don't, but there's so much preparation that has to happen to meet the deliverables. If we miss that meeting date, like one over the summer, for example, then they don't meet again until 3 or 4 months later. So that just throws off the timeline in a big way, because you can't really move forward at certain points in time until you have their approval.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? Or
you could turn things in early, is what you're saying, so that you could pull ahead the timeline for like an opening date, potentially.
Correct. So for example, the feasibility study, if we were to do the vote, Springtown meeting, we get the funding, we would then be able to consider possibly bringing some information to the MSBA at their summer meeting, or their earlier fall meeting, right?
Got it. Oh, okay.
Because now fall town meeting, I believe, isn't until
November
27th, right? I think it's is it that late?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It tends to be around Veterans Day weekend.
Yeah.
And then the MSBA meets in December, but we would never be able to meet the deadline to get on that December agenda if we've just receiving those funds and that late.
Got it.
Even
thank you for the
November?
clarification.
I'm sorry.
It's not the end of November, right? It's before Thanksgiving, not after.
I don't know. You are town meeting members, and I just show up.
It tends to be right around the
Just
about
out of
week one?
curiosity,
week.
Dr. Hackett, what is the lead time? So like if it was mid-November that we voted at fall town meeting,
It's
would that
generally a
be
couple,
able?
couple weeks. You mean the lead time for getting materials to the
Yes.
MSBA? It's
Yeah,
generally 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time.
okay,
Yeah, and remember then too, also at that point, we're working with a design team, project team. So we're working with an
Right.
architectural team with a OPM, owner's project manager. So we're also then locked into their time frame. So
right,
they might miss it, right? But we can push hard on that. And with the right company, I think that they generally have it together, but it's going to depend on our expectations around pacing.
right. Okay, thanks. I was just
Sure.
curious.
So
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
Mr. Hopcroft
Oh,
has had his hand raised for quite some time, but Tom, are your questions about schedule?
They're I guess fairly quick, but
Okay, no, I just wanted to, because I wanted to continue on schedule, but if you were going to go to a different topic, I wanted to slide in. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that it strikes me that there are, it seems quite a few advantages to Springtown meeting with regard to, reducing risk. That we have it sounds like there's a 270-day window, and if we get two bites of the apple, if something goes wrong, with our plan for spring, we still have fall. There's the staff time issues you mentioned, throughout the summer. There's even cost escalations that can occur by delaying the project, and so it seems all things being equal, it makes a lot of sense. Like I would say, absolutely go for spring. The other side of the equation, however, is the politics of Springtown meeting and the override, and I'll say that's an area that I'm less clear on. So whether it's our Dr. Matthews or Mr. Minarji, who are working with the state of the town, or other folks who could help us understand the countervailing, balance here. And it doesn't have to be tonight, by the way. This is for a future discussion, but that, I guess, that's the information that I'd like to say. I would say it's awkward, but we should definitely move forward sooner than later to reduce our risk, unless there's some overwhelming reason that says, hey, we should take on all this extra risk of our timeline slipping if we miss the December, or other cost escalations, or staff being overloaded with other things. Yeah, that's the information I'd love to see when we actually get down to discussing this in more detail. Thanks.
Dr. Matthews?
Yeah, so I just have, I guess I have four things I want to say. So I'll start with the schedule one, which is that, Ms. Minyarji and I were at the select board meeting last week, which happened only hours after this message from Mr. Nixon went out to a very wide cross-section of people in the town. And it had, I think the concern that I had is that it had specific dates in it, going all the way out to 2031. And so I just wanted to say that, the concern that I had as a school committee member who was sitting there, not, as a representative around the Morocco issue, but rather, was there to answer questions about the override. That the challenge was that they then started to discuss, use that as a timeline to discuss when an override might happen. And so I'm glad that we're having this discussion tonight. I think it's really important to try and move as quickly as is reasonably possible. I know that, being a resident of Precinct 1, I know the Morocco community is excited to move forward as quickly as possible towards a new school. So I would definitely agree with Mr. Hopcroft and say we need to move along as quickly as is possible and makes sense. But I think the second thing I will say is, beyond the statutory deadlines that are actually put upon us by MSBA, I think it's really hard to project anything other than a range of when things downstream from that might land. Because as I think it was Ms. Bolognese who was talking about, the fact that dates could actually shift based on things that happen earlier in the schedule. That's absolutely and always the case. And that's what I tried to express to our colleagues at select board on Monday night last week, because it was it was sort of presented as Morocco will be opening in 2031. I don't think we know that yet. I think it could be a range of dates, and we're not 100% sure where we're going to end up with that. So the message that I would like to communicate to them is we have obligations to the MSBA in the coming, calendar year. And then depending on those, we'll land sort of in a year to year and a half range downstream, depending on how those go and how things come out. The third thing I wanted to say is actually around the override. I think that as I think about Springtown meeting, there's going to be one of two options. And I think in my opinion, I'd love to sort of preserve our options until we know what's going to happen there. So one of two things is going to happen. Either an operating override that's voted to be placed on the ballot by the select board is going to succeed, or it's going to fail. And I think that we have potentially different needs, different outputs should each of those voting outcomes happen. And so I'd love personally, at least, to see that we're able to continue planning for an earlier funding at Springtown meeting, while understanding that the time given how events go may not be right for that. And the fourth thing I will say is, I think we're going to have to shortly, one of the things that we really have to deal with MSBA is making sure that we do the educational plan for that new school. And that's sort of the thing that then kicks off the next stages of the process, where presumably we will appoint EFPBC to be the building committee, making sure that it's constituted as is legally required by the state, with the right membership and a representative from school committee at the table for that. But what's, I think, most important is for us to understand that sort of the big thing that we have to do in the coming months is the educational program for the new building. And I have not been here long enough to have been through that for Lynch or any of the prior school projects. So look forward to getting more details on that, and sort of thinking through the work that we need to do to get that into place in the statutory timeframe required by the MSBA. So thanks to everyone for their work on this. And also thanks to the select board for sort of taking this on, but hopefully we can go back to them with a little bit of guidance about what the range of potential timings are, so that it's not sort of a one single date where we expect an override to happen, but rather a time frame during which we would expect a debt exclusion override for funding of the new project to happen.
Ms. Bergstrom.
Hi, thank you. I'm in support also of trying to move forward early in the Springtown meeting on Morocco. And this question, I think what Mr. Matthews said, the Morocco community has been looking to move forward with this project for quite some time, and we've been committed to it for quite some time. So I agree with Mr. Matthews and Mr. Hopcroft that Dr. Matthews and Mr. Hopcroft that I think that that's great. Mr. Hopcroft made an excellent point that it's also two opportunities. So if we do have any issues with feasibility at Springtown meeting, we do have the opportunity to do that again at Fall Town meeting, which I think given the operational override that is necessary and the constraints that we have on budgets in town, and we may not be we may have to be able to communicate that clearly to all residents who will need to then vote on that. So I think that the sooner we can start that process, the better. The one clarification I would like to make of what Mr. Matthews said is my understanding of having gone through this process before is that yes, things can start earlier, but it's not necessarily a range. There are things that have to happen by a certain date. So when I took a look at the timeline that Mr. Nixon had presented, my understanding of that was that he had the dates on that timeline were the dates that things had to happen by. So things have to happen within 180 days of this date. Things have to happen sort of within 90 days of that date. So I think when we're talking about this, it's probably clearer and easier for members of the community and the select board for us to communicate the dates that things the end of that that. So not a range, because if we can start earlier, then the beginning of it isn't as important as we have to have decisions by certain dates by statute. Is that not the way we think about it,
Yeah,
Dr. Hackett? That's how we've always thought about it.
Having been through this now, this would be my 5th time.
And my 4th.
So I win.
Yeah, you do.
Just a reminder that like the 270-day eligibility period isn't the like we have to wait 270 the whole thing.
No, we don't have to wait.
Right. But I'm saying that's what impacts the rest of the schedule. So like initial certificate of compliance. I mean, there are certain things on the schedule that can happen pretty quickly. I mean, these aren't like big deal things. The FPBC, as you know, has been acting and is acting as the school building committee, which we have to supply that to the MSBA. That is then effectively the project team. Mr. Matthews' question around or statement around the educational plan is just also a reminder that plan is yours. So there are few things that you make that are within your authority, you make decisions on. And the educational plan, which is arguably the most important because the whole project is designed based on the plan, that is subject to your approval. What we did with the Lynch School, because I came on right about then, although I had a 30-day window to get it done versus generally what's like a 90-day window because of the time frames. But the design team actually had a facilitator who came in, and we brought in representatives from teachers, administrators, parents, I believe students, and kind of did a visioning process with them. That's one option or way to do it. It can also be done by us we design the process and then we facilitate the process. Now, who does it and how it happens? I believe we've got really good facilitators on staff, 2 of them on the calls on this meeting. So I think we can, that would help us accelerate it too, because then we're not waiting for the bid process to get a design company on that then it's going to subcontract us a consultant who's going to cost us more money, the project more money than I would say than we would need to spend. So those are the kinds of decisions that we can make to influence the time frame. And I'm not directly or indirectly answering your question, but I'm trying to make the point that there are places here that we can accelerate this and it's within our control. Right. What Mr. Nixon doesn't include on the schedule, because it's not known necessarily, is like when are the exact dates for the MSBA meeting schedule for the next 2 years, right? We don't necessarily know that. So we know kind of about when they would happen. But those dates are pretty critical too, as you know, I said, because that's when the packages have to go in ahead of time, and you got one shot to get in there and get the next step approved. If you miss that shot, you're 3 months out. And in some cases, the work stops. Like it can absolutely put you to a full stop.
And I guess we're saying the same thing, Dr. Hackett. What I'm saying is I think the most important dates are the dates we have to have things finished by. Like we can start many parts earlier, but the important information is sort of when all the information where the points in the process are that has to be finished by. And I think you make another good point around the educational plan. It is our educational plan, but we've always seen it sort of as the community's educational plan. We certainly involved a lot of the Lynch community and including CPAC and organizations like that when we're building a new community school, because their voices are important too.
Yeah, I was involved in the Lynch one, so I sat through all of it, and it was a good process. We involved a lot of people. My only point on that was you are the end point of that. The plan, recommended plan comes to you, you review it, and it's under your authority and your authority only to approve that plan. That's not an EFPBC decision. Nope. That's not a select board decision. That is the school committee's decision.
And I just wanted to say that I think I was also saying the same thing. I just want to be clear that there are certain dates that we know, right? We know that we could go earlier than that, but we can't be any later than that. The concern I had, especially at the select board meeting, was that there was sort of at least some discussion about the date that the school would be opening as more of a certainty than I think it might be. I think there is an option for us to potentially even be a year earlier than that. And so I just want to make sure that we don't, beyond the stuff that we know statutorily right now, I just don't want us to get locked into later than or earlier than expected end dates for projects, because especially being aware of being in this community and being aware of how much people have been waiting for this. I was concerned in particular about a certain completion date and opening date, which I don't think we're 100% locked in on yet. So that was
I think
more
if there are areas that we can pull things ahead or move
right.
or just move along as fast as we can, then we should do that.
My main point is I don't want us to be the reason why we don't. I don't want us to be the reason why we get behind on the schedule, right? We could get behind on the schedule because we're the OPM, because of the design, because of the conditions. We could get. I mean, if this is a renovation addition project, a renovation project is much more complicated because you're tying systems in. You got to shift. Are we shifting kids? Where are they? Where are they going to go? How do we do the swing space? So all of that stuff is more complicated than what we did with Lynch, although that felt complicated, but we just cleared the site. Like we gave it over to the construction crew and they had full access to it. And that's not this project, I don't believe.
Mr. Hopcroft?
Nathan, Ms. Mignard, do you have something to say first? I know your hand was up for a long
Just
time
really
before me.
quickly, I'm supportive of bringing this to Springtown meeting. Override or no override, this has been something that the State of the Town Committee has been anticipating. The entire community has been anticipating, so I'm supportive of bringing this to Springtown meeting. Just one quick question. How much does a feasibility study cost?
Well,
I know it varies, but how much did Lynch cost, just as a proxy?
The guideline from the MSBA for an elementary project right now would be anywhere from to count on anywhere from 800 to 1.2 million. You may or may not spend all of that. So you're essentially you're raising the funds to have access to the funds. And you also, if the project is successful, whatever reimbursement we get from the MSBA, the amount of those feasibility funds at that reimbursement rate also factor into we get some reimbursement on that. But that's generally what they would recommend, and we would work with them to nail that number down more firmly. Mr. Nixon said today, you don't want to go in the spring and not ask for enough money and then have to go back in the fall, which is a great point.
Right. And then create delays and
correct. So you're better off to overshoot it a little bit and just explain that you may use all of it, you may not use all of it.
Okay. So 800 to 1.2, we'll know a better number come the spring. Okay.
Yep.
So I just had two quick things. One was I wanted to thank Mr. Nixon and say that I really appreciated the work that he put into this. It's he brings so much institutional knowledge, and I think I read it with an understanding of the ambiguity of dates within there. But to lay this out early on to trigger this conversation, for instance, I think was really helpful and beneficial, and I appreciate him doing that. And I respect Dr. Matthews' point that we don't want to create expectations, and it does get a little bit. People will hear things and they'll lock in on them, and I think it's a really very fair point that with all the elasticity in these different parts of the timeline, that we should be careful about predicting when the end of that timeline is. But I did appreciate him putting it together in the first place. The other thing I just wanted to reflect on, I should have mentioned the first time, is that 270 days is 9 months, and if we're starting in March, it's March to December. So this is a big window. And I won't repeat all the points before about having two town meetings in that time, but and a minor Ms. Bergstrom, I agree with sort of the technical finish by date. but also the opportunity that we have to finish much sooner. So, if we bring this at Springtown meeting and we can get the process going 2 months into a 9-month window, we'll have 7 months. And so it's, I think there's a lot of opportunity there to lower the risks, as I mentioned before. But anyway, I mainly just wanted to thank Mr. Nixon and just sort of, say I did the math on the 270 and I was like, that's a lot of, it's 3/4 of the year. So it's a big window and it would be great to be at the early end of it.
He's a typical architect, always building more time in, so.
Yeah. That too. Well, and I also don't know all the political, with what I know now, I would say we should do this in the spring, notwithstanding it not being the most convenient, best optics, et cetera, time, but just because of the risk reduction that we get throughout the process. But I'm certainly open to hearing, select board or other people, want to share a different perspective. I'd love to hear that before we vote on it.
Thank you. I think it's exciting that we're having this conversation. So big steps along the way.
Yep.
And I think lastly, I will say it's really exciting for the Morocco community. I know it's something that folks have been waiting for a very long time. I always tell the story about when I moved here with my family in 2018. I was told that by the time my daughter entered kindergarten, Morocco would be long open. She's entering kindergarten in the fall, and it is definitely not going to be long open by the time she enters kindergarten. So it's definitely something that I know the community, just like the Lynch community, has been waiting for a very long time. So want to give voice to the many people there who have aspired to have a new school for the residents of this neighborhood, and have unfortunately in many cases not been able to see that come to fruition for their own kids' elementary education. So.
And I would just say also that for a school that values, for a town that values education, the way that we do, and being one of the last two districts, but just finishing the portfolio of schools and bringing our last school up to modern standards. Not to mention the opportunity for geothermal and things like that. We'll get into that later. But
I'm sure we will.
Couldn't help yourself, Mr. Hopcroft.
I couldn't help squeezing that in there, but it just as a resident of the town, and I get that it's personal, much like Lynch was for our neighborhood, but it's I think it's a pride point for the town to have our entire portfolio of buildings be world class, and it's really not right now. So I appreciate that.
I actually had that conversation with someone today, kind of related to the capital needs of the town, and I've not been, and there aren't many school systems in the state that can say that they've done the level of work on their schools that we have, that Winchester has. And that's obviously goes back a long ways, but the investments that this community has made in its facilities is not matched by many other school systems per capita, so to speak. So there's a lot to be proud of there. And it does make, as you know, a huge difference. You can't really say that the Lynch facility that we walked into in September didn't have an impact on teaching and learning in the entire community. Okay, so we'll figure out the next steps and go ahead and start to have some communications with the FPBC perhaps and others around this, that we are interested in looking at this timeline.
Great. All righty. Thank you very much. And now we will move on to consideration of policies. This is our second time seeing these policies. They were first brought to you at our last meeting of 2025 on December 18th. And as we had introduced at that time, we had several updates to sections B and to E, a few additions that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, MASC, has made, and a few deletions. Dr. Hackett, did you have any comment that you would like to make on?
No, I think the committee has seen these policies multiple times, well, a couple of times at least. Most of them at your last meeting. You have seen some revisions. As always, a lot of thanks to Madam Chair, Mr. Matthews for tirelessly going through these policies and somehow being able to power through what I consider to be pretty mind-numbing policy subcommittee meetings, and throwing around the letters that these policies have on them. But there's a ton of work, very meticulous work, and so you have seen these, and I would say it's up to the committee as to how you want to proceed on reviewing them and accepting them tonight.
Yeah, I'm not going to, as a member of the policy subcommittee, I'm not going to jump in with a motion, but if folks have questions first that are not on policy, please feel free to let us know before we move forward to approval.
No, I think you've done a great job keeping us updated and informed along the way. I know that some of the policies have even had legal review beyond just the two of you. So I would be happy to make a motion to approve the Section B, E updates, Section E additions, and the policies for deletion as presented.
I'm happy to second that if no one else wants to.
Thank you. And all in favor? Ms. Bergstrom?
Aye.
Dr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mr. Hopcroft?
Aye.
And Ms. Minyarji?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, and the vote is unanimous. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for all of your hard work, even before. So I'm now approaching the end of my second year on the committee. And when I arrived and we started going through some of the policy subcommittee meetings, we were dealing with some revisions that had been in flight for, I believe it was 3 years at that time. So I think now we're probably approaching the 5 years since we started to go through and try to make sure this was all cleaned up. The last time it was done in a sort of planful and meaningful way prior to this was in 2015. So it's now been more than 10 years. So thank you for taking on that work, for going through with a meticulous fine-tooth comb, looking at what updates are recommended by MASC, making sure they align with our practices here, and making sure that we are always in alignment with both federal and state law requirements. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you too for all of your help. So, Ms. Minyarji?
Just a quick question. So now, do these updates, are they effective immediately?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're effective immediately, and then they'll be rolled up into the policy manual. In fact, Ms. Bedard, Dr. Hackett's administrative assistant, has been working on policies that we've been improving from last year. So
and putting them in the document that's on the website, right?
Exactly.
So they won't be on the website tomorrow. That's going to take
not tomorrow.
Right.
But we do have a Kristen has really come into the process now fully. And it's not an easy process to pick up and figure out. And luckily, Ms. Bolanesi does a great job of tracking all the policies, when they've been approved, when they've been considered, did they get approved, where are they in the process? So that spreadsheet and that tracker has Ms. Bolanesi has gone over with Kristen, so they really now have a joint document, and she is extremely organized, like the chair. So we'll turn them around fairly quickly.
I think so. I can't wait to update the spreadsheet. And I know we've had a lot of policies that have been coming to us over the course of the last year. And I would say that we just really have 3 more big sections left to go from sections A through L. So we've come a long way. So just sit tight a little bit longer.
And many school systems contract this work to the tune of $15,000 to $25,000. So luckily, your salaries as school committee members have, matched that.
That's $5K each, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, dividing by 0 and multiplying by 0, there are sort of predictable effects to that. So
yeah,
multiply by 0. All right. So thank you very much, everybody. And we'll move on to next meetings. We've been talking about February 5th as our next meeting it will be both the public hearing for the budget, and then also we will vote on the budget that evening. And so there will be a regular meeting as well that evening, which will cover some of the items that we've been talking about tonight. And then
Dr. Hackett.
Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Apcroft.
Just to say, can you clarify the times that we're expecting these meetings? I just don't have them all up to date on my calendar.
I believe
So
that will be 6:30.
They're all
okay. And so both on the 5th and the 12th, we start at 6:30.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So yes, and the other meeting is the February 12th. Oh,
I was
sorry.
just going to ask Dr. Hackett, do you anticipate we might need a meeting after the budget summit and before? Because that won't be necessarily a conversation of this committee, but a broader.
I'm anticipating that you're going to have a budget subcommittee meeting, and that we're going to need some time to turn that around. So if there's anything to turn around, I think the budget sub may have 2 meetings prior to the 5th, probably.
Okay.
And at that time, I think, I think we use the 5th, you use the 5th as a kind of a omnibus meeting where we just go through everything. And I think because the full committee has been pretty updated along the way, mainly as a result of the State of the Town Committee and your representatives, we have done a lot of budget updates along the way. So I feel pretty comfortable that I think we will be ready for the 5th. It's just now it's a question of what numbers are we working with.
Right. I didn't know if we had a meeting on the 29th, and I didn't know if we wanted to keep that as a virtual meeting for budget only of the full committee, not budget subcommittee, to be able to discuss that before we had the public hearing on the 5th.
We could hold it. I would like to think we won't use it, but we could hold it. Because I think the work down, unless people have real specific technical questions, you've all been through this process a lot of times. You know what the documents look like. You know where Andrew is. You know how to get a hold of him. You know how to get a hold of me. You're a veteran committee. So I would, if you want to meet on the 29th, there's certainly no harm in holding the day.
I only asked because the other night in the budget subcommittee meeting, you had mentioned that you thought the whole committee needed to have.
Things change in my head so quickly.
Okay. So I was just holding that piece of information we talked about in the meeting.
I may or may not recall saying that. I think we're in good shape. I guess I would say we are so much farther ahead than we've ever been because that the process has forced it. So
I was going to say, or I was just going to reiterate that I think with the work that Dr. Matthews and Ms. Minyarji have been doing with the state of the town over the last many months and the many times that we've seen the budget or just the 5-year projection, priorities, and the number of times that we've talked about this, I feel, and then just from watching the budget subcommittee meetings, I feel like we have heard this a lot. And we're very familiar with it at a much deeper level than we are normally at this time. I
don't need convincing Miss Bolognese. I was just checking Dr. Hackett, since that's what he had said the other night.
Okay.
It wasn't a memory lapse. I know that I said it.
All of you have been doing great work. So
I also wanted, so I'll just say what I had said before, which is that given the fact that the budget summit is so tight to our meeting, it's happening more or less on the evening of Wednesday, and then we were scheduled to meet on Thursday. Yep. I'm just not sure that there's going to be a lot of work time to get real decisions by that point. I mean, I know everybody's sort of, I reached out to the town clerk at one point because I was sort of nervous about the way things were evolving and the fact that we know the town manager's budget's due on the 15th, but it's, so it's like, the reality is the budget summit's not until, Wednesday of next week, which means we do actually need a little bit of time to react to that. So it's just, I think it's a challenging timeline this year with the new town manager starting. And I think we're all just going to do the best we can. So I think the answer is TBD, right? On what happens next week.
And I don't think we should make it easy on the new town manager. Why start off easy and give him extra time? I think let's get it going. Let's see what he's got. So I'm actually meeting with him next week, so we'll be having those discussions too. And I can update him on where we are.
Sounds great. We are not going to be having the executive session this evening. So,
We've already talked about our next meeting, so
and we did.
Happy to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Second.
And I'll just also just say, thank you to everyone who's been involved, state of the town, budget subcommittee, to our fearless chair and district staff. It's been a busy year, and you guys have really pulled through. So thank you so much.
Agreed.
Absolutely, everybody, really appreciate it. All right, so we had all in favor, or we had our motion in a second. So all in favor, Ms. Minyarji.
Aye.
Mr. Hopcroft. Ms. Bergstrom.
Aye.
And Dr. Matthews.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And thank you so much. We're adjourned at 8:27 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for all your work, and also to WinCam.
Yep. Have a good night. Thanks,
Have a great
WinCam.
night, everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Have a great one.
Record.